Headlines are basically what the internet reads. We tend to not read a lot of stories, we tend to just read headlines. Headlines are the best way to grab someone's attention. And it's also a great way to segment everything we've learned so far into a proper web page where we have more than just a paragraph. So we're going to learn about headers. Now, out of the box, your browser, Chrome, Safari, Edge, whatever you want to use, they all come with 6 types of headers. Headers 1 through 6, aptly named H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. That was actually hard to say. So we are going to demonstrate, or I guess rather I am going to demonstrate what all of those headers look like compared to a paragraph. So behind me here, I have VS Code, and I'm just going to create a new file here, and I'm going to save this as headers.html. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a doc type. We have a doc type called HTML. We also have HTML in here, so that's telling the page that everything inside of here is HTML. We have our head, and we have a title. We know about this one already, so let's call this one headers. And we also have a body, and in here we have the different headers that we're going to look at. So the first one is H1. H1 is the biggest header. And down here, we're going to have H6. H6 is the smallest header. And I just want us to take a look at this right now, just sort of currently where we're at. So I have Firefox open, and I'm just going to open up, actually I'm going to open this up a little bit differently. I opened up my Finder here, and I'm just going to find, where did I call it? Headers.html, open with. Do I want to open it with Safari? I could. Firefox, Chrome, let's go with Firefox. So here we have H1 is the biggest header and H6 is the smallest header. Now this is its actual size on my screen right now. So this is not zoomed in at all. And you can see that H1 is fairly big and actually really, really small. So let's go back to VS Code and let's add H2. H2 is this size. Let's also add H3. H3 is this size, whatever that's going to be. H4. H4 is this size. And H5. H5 is this size. That rhymed, unintentional. Refresh my page and, oh, by the way, if you don't know how to refresh a page with your keyboard, which I think I've been doing a little bit throughout this video, you can just hit Command R or Control R and it will refresh, or you can just hit the button up here. You can see that actually it looks like there's an HTML title over it that says Reload Current Page, Command R. So H1 is our biggest header. H2 is significantly smaller. H3 is smaller. H4 is smaller. H5 is small. H6 is tiny. So these are our different headers. Now you're probably thinking, well, where am I going to use all these? And the answer is actually everywhere. You're going to use this on pretty much every single website you make forever. These are incredibly useful. And the larger the text, generally the more emphasis a search engine puts on a particular subject. So if you were talking about, let's talk about goats, cats, and dogs. 3 awesome animals. So we simply refresh our page. It says goats, cats, and dogs. A search engine would say, oh, that's an H1 tag? Okay, so I know that this is about goats, cats, and dogs. I know that H1 tags are larger, generally speaking, so I'm going to put a little more emphasis on that and help you out with SEO. So I know that when someone talks about goats, cats, or dogs, that maybe I'm going to recommend your website first. Maybe. So I'm just going to undo that. And as an example, let's go ahead and add a paragraph. So we have some regular text in here. Let's save and let's go up here and hit refresh. And you can actually see, again, this is the regular size on my screen. So it looks small in your video. It's actually quite small on my screen as well. But the paragraph text is actually larger than the H6 text. It actually even looks maybe the same size or maybe a little bit larger than the H5 as well. Now, isn't that mind-blowing? That for whatever reason, we have a title tag, a header tag, the 6th one, albeit the smallest one, but it's smaller than the default text on our page. And you're probably thinking, well, where on earth would I ever use that? And that's a great question. Let's go ahead and create an example of where you're going to use that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a horizontal rule. And that is simply HR, Horizontal rule stands for horizontal rule. And refresh the page, and you can see it brings a line right across the page, something like that. So now let's say we are making a blog. You have your own website eventually, and we want to make a blog. So let's create an H2 title for our blog post. Welcome to my blog. And maybe we want to specify something that's still, for whatever reason, still important to us. Maybe the date that it was posted. So we say date posted, let's say July 20th, 2021. Let's say for whatever reason we are living exactly on July 20th, 2021. And then we can put a paragraph in here. Let's talk all about my blog. This is why I started a blog, and this is why I like coding. I'm not gonna take up singing. Hit refresh, and now we can see we have a blog title up here. We have small text. It's not quite as important as this text up here, but in the grand scheme of things, the date that something is posted is important. So we would technically use an H6 here, maybe an H5. Maybe we just bold it and it's good enough. That's a decision for you to make down the road when you're making your websites, but this is just an example of when we would use this. Now I'm going to clean this up quickly so you can see what I'm doing here. Get rid of this white space because that's not really needed. Now what I would like you to do for your task is I want you to create a brand new file, new HTML file from scratch. Include your doc type, make sure you write out the HTML, put a header, put a head tag in there, not a header, a head. Add your title. And then inside of your body, add H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then add a paragraph at the end just to compare the text. When you're done all that, don't forget to save your file and open it up in your browser, and you will see something that looks like this. Once you're done that, let's head on over to that next lesson and let's learn about how we can add line breaks, because right now it's kind of difficult.